Hello, welcome to the Chosen Companion series. Here, starting with our episode 0. Um, yeah, it's a funny number to start with, but we'll explain it as we get along here. But my name is Mike from the Showboys podcast. I'm joined by my good friend James from the nerdybible.com. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I am great. How about you?
I'm doing okay. It was first day of school for our oldest child going to second grade. And so that was fun. And fighting off a little bit of a headache, but we're good. We're good.
That's good.
Yeah. But what about you? How was your day?
Yeah, I just smile and nod at answered. No, it's one of those Mondays that are, you just smile and nod and you get through it. Gives you a headache, you take some Tylenol and
Yep.
goes away.
Hey, you know what? We're here.
Yes.
We're going to be chatting about something fun and something that we both are passionate about. So that's going to be a great cap to this Monday. But if you aren't familiar, I am a host of the Showboys podcast, and we're a podcast that delves into the world of film and TV and gaming and all the other areas in between. Basically, we're just kind of like a nerd culture podcast. And we love talking about movies and shows. And one of the things we do a thing called companion series, which is what this is going to be. And basically, when we do a companion series, we go through a series episode by episode and break down, analyze, react to each episode. And do that for every episode in the season. And for this show, The Chosen, we are currently in between seasons here. Season 3 is, I believe they are finished filming, or they are nearly finished filming season 3. So hopefully we'll be getting that within the 6 months to the next year. Hopefully sooner than later. But we want to do in the series is just go through all the episodes that have been released so far. So we have 2 seasons worth of episodes to break down. And this is going to be fun because not only do we like shows, I assume you like shows, James. I don't want to speak for you.
I can binge.
Yes. So not only do we like shows, but we also love Jesus. And this is, at least in my opinion, one of the few shows or movies within the Christian culture that is like good.
Good?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Both said the same word, yeah.
Like quality, obviously, like content-wise, even the bad Christian stuff, like the heart and the intent is good. But oftentimes the execution is lacking. But what is so fascinating about this show is it's executed very well and is of high quality. So we want to get into that and break that down. And but that's enough about Showboys. Tell us a little bit about the Nerdy Bible, sir.
Yeah, so the Nerdy Bible is something I thought of a couple years ago, and I've just kind of been sitting on it for a long time. But it's actually finishing up the paperwork now for a nonprofit. So where I typically put on the website is soon-to-be nonprofit, I will be changing that to nonprofit.
Yes.
But no, so it's basically a project that's aimed at just bridging the gap between the modern world and Jesus. So I am not a theologian. I spent at this point just, I think 6 to 8 years studying science, biology, and my undergrad in physics and graduate degrees in physics. And so I have a very different mindset towards things. And I actually chose a different path, and I'm going towards theology right now. So a master in divinity. I start a week from today in that.
Nice.
And then I'll pursue a PhD at that point. So what I'm doing is trying to just take these difficult concepts that people have a hard time with and wrestle with them and provide a space for people to wrestle, and really just an area for non-believers, atheists. Well, it's probably the two in the same right there, but just a place to just pursue a better understanding. So yeah, that's what the Nerdy Bible is. So it's got a lot of elements to it: a blog, podcast, and we're going to be doing a bunch of studies and planning on some animation. So a lot of things being planned right now. Not enough people, but a lot
and
of planning.
I could tell you as someone who's heard the ideas from James's brain and the heart behind the website and the project Nerdy Bible. I'm very excited for the future of this. And right now you have a few blog posts out already, right?
Yeah, right now there's just a couple where I started a little series on knowledge. I wanted to kind of start with knowledge, and I think I'll eventually go into wisdom. I think they're two different things that are often thought of the same, but my knowledge series is kind of going over the philosophy of Plato, the allegory of the cave. So you can find it at thenerdybible.com.
Yes,
But
and this guy's wicked smart and very good writer, because I've read the first one. It's really good. But yeah, so anyone watching from the Showboys audience, please go check out the Nerdy Bible. But yeah, so I thought maybe it would be cool to kind of give like our background, our combined background here, just so people know how this all came together. And of course, I've talked about on the show a few times, just kind of touched on my faith and things that I've done and was doing in terms of serving and stuff. But if you are either didn't catch those segments of episodes, I've been a Christian for I don't know, like 15 years now. I wasn't raised in the church, but I did come to know the Lord. I would say the exact age I'm not certain on. It's somewhere between 18 and 20. I don't know. I would say we'll just call it 19. We'll just pick right in the middle. That is about 19. So, it hasn't been a lifelong thing, but at this point, it's nearly half my life now. But yeah, through my years of following Jesus, I've become involved in the churches I've attended and served in the worship ministries, anywhere from running sound behind the soundboard, twisting knobs and pushing sliders, to playing bass and guitar and singing and leading, to helping plant a church here in our area. What was that, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was about
a
year and a half.
Process was, I think the church has been open for about a year and a half, 2 years, but the process was like, I don't know, started like 4 years ago or something. But this is kind of how James and I ended up meeting each other and becoming good pals. We both were involved in helping out with this church plant, and we both served in the worship ministry there, and became buddies, and have been ever since, and it's been awesome. But like we said at the start, we both like watching shows and talking about nerdy stuff, and then we both stumbled on The Chosen on different times and have talked about that, and just thought, man, it'd be really cool to come together and like really dig into it. But yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, James?
Yeah, so much of my teenage years, 20s, I was not a Christian. So I was I was very far from that. I wouldn't say that far, like I wasn't horrible person, but just not involved at all. And is actually 30 years old, like on the dot. I don't know what happened, but it like seriously, no, it was crazy. It was like just middle of the night. I couldn't sleep for like 3 days straight. And then it all kind of hit me. And so like a month later, I went and got baptized, started going to a church, and got married, moved to Canton, and then ended up at this church plant as we were kind of looking around. Well, COVID is happening. We're like, I don't know what church I want to go
Not really
to.
the best time to
Yeah,
try
no,
to start a church in the
no.
middle of a global pandemic. It was a little rough.
So yeah, just found this church online and saw that they were planting it, started meeting people from there. And I was like, this is just, I've never been in a place where there's so many introverted people. Like the men are all introverted, and all the wives are like just extremely extroverted. And so it was just this weird concept. And then I met you and I was like, oh, you like Coheed? And you were like, yeah, no, you like and so it was just
and then the rest is history.
On, yeah.
Yes, big fans of Coheed, that's for sure.
Yes. And then you invited me onto the worship team, and and from there on we just kind of grew in that. And like you said, you
started catching Pokemon together.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. It was a match made in heaven.
Absolutely. I need a giant Squirtle for my video camera. You got your big Bulbasaur there.
This is Bulbo Baggins, by the way. That's what I nickname every Bulbasaur I catch in every Pokemon game.
Yeah,
it's perfect. But yeah, so
and for anyone that's listening in audio, we have videos running right now.
Yes,
that may confuse you if you're.
We will be releasing this series on the typical audio podcasting platforms, and also on YouTube. So there is a video option if you're into that. If you're not, we're just thankful you're listening.
Yes.
But so why? Well, before we get into why we decided to do The Chosen, let's explain the concept of episode 0. So in our companion series, like I said, we talk about every episode of the specific show that we're breaking down, and like we get really deep into the episodes. But one thing we started doing in the last few companion series we have done on Showboys is we did kind of like a hype episode called episode 0 that we did before the show started. So what we would do in these is kind of talk about some of the news or things known about the show or the season, theorize what we think might happen, what we're looking forward to seeing, what we think we're going to see, things like that. And episode 0s are always really fun. So like we said, there are already 2 seasons of this show out, so there's not really anything to hype up because it's already out there. But we thought we would still do an episode 0 just to kind of like introduce us and introduce the show to you. And we also found out that there was a pilot episode that is not part of the first season, which I did not know about until last week when James was like, hey, you want to cover the pilot? And I was like, I didn't even know there was a pilot. So yeah, let's do it. So that's kind of what we're going to do tonight. You want to talk about why we wanted to do The Chosen, or explain The Chosen?
Yeah, so I was thinking a lot about that this week, and like what makes The Chosen just good, other than like good cinematic, just videos and stuff. It's just, so I think what the key thing for me is that it puts you into the culture of that era. Like for me personally, like I don't think I would ever understand anything about the Bible if I didn't understand the culture that they were in. I mean, when I first started coming over to my faith here, I started digging into the Bible, and then I realized, oh, like this doesn't really help much because I don't understand like
Yeah.
I don't understand the context of it all. So what I realized is that the show is so great because it puts you into that culture and gives you context to what scripture, says. So I think that's why I like the show so much, and that I think it's important to kind of discuss and go over.
Yeah.
It,
I feel the same. Like, one thing that the show did for me is exactly what you said. It just made scripture relatable. Like, it. I mean, this is gonna sound terrible coming from someone who's been, I've been a Christian for how many years, like 15 ish, and I've served and led and like been on staff at a church, but like oftentimes when I read the Bible, it is incredibly difficult for me to like extract stuff from it, because it's so unrelatable, because it was written so long ago in a culture that is vastly different than, not only like here in America, but like here in this point in time across the globe, right? So what Dallas Jenkins does, the creator and director here of The Chosen, what he does with this show is take scripture and like humanize it, but also show like the historical and cultural context. Like I always joke around on the podcast that like I can't read because like I really don't like reading, and often joke about, the only reading I do is comic books because there aren't many words. It's a lot of pictures, but I'm a visual person, a visual learner. So being able to see like Jesus or one of the disciples walking down the street in whatever town, in whatever particular story of the Bible that is being portrayed, or like how the Roman guards interact with them, or how the people are treating Jesus or whatever, like it just opens things up for me to like, I don't know, things just click because I'm seeing like, oh, that's how it was, there in Galilee or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's why it's so impactful for me, at least.
Yeah, and there's like there's like meaning and there's intent. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of the writing that you have in scripture, there's this intent for that culture that it's writing to. And so when we go to perceive it, it's just not, the text implies things that you don't understand because you're not in that culture.
Right.
So what's it's just this show has been able to, like you just said, put it into context and give you this better understanding because you're seeing the streets of Rome, for
Yeah.
example, and it's not extremely cheesy either.
Yeah.
Cheesy
Yeah.
parts. Yeah, it's like any show, but
Right.
it's more it feels real
Yeah.
in some regard.
Yeah. And like one of the things that I really enjoy is, Jesus just like seems human, right? I mean, because he was, but also like he's not. So it's like that weird dichotomy, right? Of being God, but also being man. But like when I read the Bible and I read what Jesus said to people, right? Like oftentimes it doesn't come across in my mind as like me talking to you or whatever. It's like I don't really know how to explain it. I just put that like God voice on everything Jesus says in the Bible, which I should, but it just doesn't make it sound like I mean, it's not humanized to me because I have that. I don't. I
It's
really
like a
don't know how to.
personal
Yeah,
relationship
but then
you're
like,
experiencing in that conversation rather than like this.
yeah, but then like seeing him in the show portrayed the way he is, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, he was just like, I mean, he wasn't a normal guy, but like, he was just like any of us walking through the streets. Like, he still like had to eat. He still like made relationships with people, and like, I don't know, it just it did something for me that is very hard to explain, which is funny because that's the whole point of this podcast, and I'm failing miserably. But it just the only word I can use is it humanizes Jesus in a way that makes it a lot more relatable, and not so much humanizes Jesus as in takes away the divinity of who he is. Does that make sense?
It does. It
Okay.
does.
Oh, itchy eye. But yeah, one thing I do want to say, I found a cool little video clip from Dallas, because there's been quite a bit of controversy around the show actually, and a lot of articles and videos on like things that have been taken out of context of quotes from Dallas or other people on the show and whatever. And I was just had it playing in the background, not like super familiar with what this particular quote he was trying to explain was, but about halfway through the video or so, he explains something that I thought was really cool, that I think a lot of people need to kind of keep in the back of their head when they're watching this show. And I think the people that criticize this show might have overlooked this, or think that people approach the show in this way. But Dallas says that this show is not a replacement for scripture. It's just merely a tool to help, I don't know, make it relatable or like impactful, or I don't know, like shoot. Kind of like how worship or a sermon from a pastor,
It's an
or like
extension.
a conversation with a friend, it's just another tool in the tool belt of like helping get people into the word and to bring Jesus to people,
Yeah. I mean, I think if you took that same logic, then preaching should be non-biblical. I mean, like all of the things should be non.
Yeah,
Like at what point do you?
Yeah, he also did say that like he's like he explained the importance of pastors and the church and the local church, and that like you should not put this TV series above anything. Like it is very much like just a tool. But yeah, I'll include the link, and I think I have the link starting at the timestamp where that conversation starts. But you should watch the whole video; it's good. But yeah, continue what you were saying.
That's a good question. I don't know what I'm saying.
I think it was something about at what point do you take the intent of something?
Oh, yeah, no, that was a while ago. Yeah, no, I think what I was just going for is that if you think about meaning and intent, is that there's somebody writing something with an intent, right? That thing that he writes, the text implies something, and then the reader must like interpret it. So right there, like I think, if you put us into this context here, us as readers of the Bible in a modern age, we're reading this text that were not intended for us, that implies things that we don't understand. So really, it's never just the one thing that allows us to understand it. It's the mixture of all those three. And this is actually, I'm reading, if for you Bible nerds out there, N.T. Wright, the New Testament in its world. So it's a really good book. It's a It's a
Nice.
giant tome. It's huge. But so he has a whole chapter on this type of thing. And so that's where that comes. But it's the fusion of those three that you get meaning. You
Yeah.
know, that's where that comes from. So that's really all I was going
No,
with that. But
that's really good. But yeah, that's not to say that you know, there aren't a few creative liberties taken with this show.
oh, there's a lot of creative liberties. I mean, I think I mean some of those stories and you just the characters and their personalities, there has to be some, yeah, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but like, you know, like people like Matthew and stuff, like I don't know where I'd have to dig deeper, like why did they make him the way he is? And I
Yeah.
probably some of it the way he writes, but I don't know. So there's a lot of creative
Yeah.
liberties, I think.
There we will definitely get to that when
Mhm.
we do, but that was a big head scratcher for me. But you know, this is such a touchy like subject to one just create around, right? You know, anything around Jesus or the Bible is going to be like spicy amongst all audiences, believers and
Mm.
non-believers alike. Um, but then you add a few creative liberties here and there, and you're bound to really make some people angry. Or, you know, if there isn't enough creative liberties taken and you're being too direct in your translation of Bible to show, you're going to make some people angry there. So, yeah, I'm excited to like get into episodes and come up and with these topics that maybe were a little touchy for some people and dig into, you know, we could talk about what we theorize his intent or the writer's intent was versus how it actually came across and things like that. I think it'll be fun to like now, you know, really like we've been saying, dig into this stuff and not just like fanboy over it. Because we both, I'm a fan of the show. I assume that
Mhm.
you'd also like it,
It's all right. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
but we won't shy away from, you know, critiquing when it's needed and stuff. So yeah, I think hopefully we're able to come across as a pretty fair and even uh, viewpoint and opinion of the series. Um, but with that being said, you want to jump into the pilot here?
Let's do it.
All right. So, a little background: the pilot is titled "The Shepherd." It released on December 24th, 2017, which makes a lot of sense considering the content of the episode. Didn't realize it released on Christmas Eve. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It was directed by Dallas Jenkins, of course, written by Tyler Thompson and Dallas Jenkins. But here's just a little synopsis of the episode. On the outskirts of Bethlehem during the Roman occupation, Simon, a crippled shepherd, brings a lamb for sacrifice. While Simon asks the priest about the coming Messiah, the lamb he brings is discovered to have a blemish. The priest rejects it, demanding a perfect and spotless lamb. Simon hears a reading of Isaiah from a nearby synagogue and goes in only to be expelled. On the way home, the shepherd meets a couple from Nazareth, a pregnant Mary and her husband Joseph. That evening, while Simon is far away or is far from his fellow shepherds, the shepherds hear the angelic announcement of the birth of the Lamb of God, and they immediately head to Bethlehem. Full of joy, Simon is miraculously healed as he follows after, leaving his staff behind. The shepherds arrive and witness the birth of the Messiah. Seeing the baby, Simon asks his name. Mary and Joseph reply that he will be called Jesus. Leaving the manger, the shepherds tell everyone what they've seen. The priest from before asks where the spotless lamb for sacrifice is, and Simon simply smiles. So that wasn't just a summary. That was almost a play-by-play of what happens in the episode. So first thoughts, what did you think of the pilot?
I think it's good. And I don't know. I meant to look this up. I don't know if he had the whole series planned when he wrote this, because I know he did this for his church.
Yes, I
And
do remember hearing that this was
so
kind of
honestly, I mean, I think I'm pretty like impressed with like the quality and like the for it being like, I think what they call now a pilot episode, and it not being, I don't know if his intent was it to be a
right.
pilot episode, for a larger series, but I think it's really good, and I think they hit some of the like just major um I guess themes towards maybe the hierarchy of a priest and a shepherd, and yeah, so I think it was just well done all around. What are your first thoughts on it?
Yeah, I do remember hearing that this started as like a church production, which
Mhm.
if this was the church production, like holy cow, they have some pretty sick cameras.
Yeah, I
Because
know.
like yeah, the cinematography, I mean, obviously it's not, we're not, looking at some AAA blockbuster feature film. Um, but there are some cool shots, some cool camera work, and
Mhm.
the picture is just crispy. Like it looks good, like it's filmed on professional cameras with great lenses. I would say, like quality wise, they do some cool things. Particularly, I really enjoyed the beginning of the episode here. I'm a sucker. Like I'm gonna dig into some like cinema type things before we get into like the real meat and potatoes of the intent of the episode. But I'm a sucker for the use of silence in scenes. So like the episode starts, you have some music playing. I think it's like piano or something, and you get like kind of like a montage of these shepherds leading the lambs to a well and then into Bethlehem. And during the shots of the shepherds, you just hear the music, and then it'll cut to like a black screen with some text with some context of what's going on. I love that. And then as they fade the conversation at the well kind of in, and it's kind of almost muffled a little bit, and you can't like hear all the conversations that are happening, but there are conversations happening. I love the use of stuff like that. And granted, I haven't seen a ton of a lot of other Christian productions, but the ones I have watched, you probably wouldn't find anything like this.
I usually turn them off pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say they do kind of, I guess one of the things that I wouldn't say I rolled my eyes at, but I was like close to rolling my eyes at, was some of the things they hit a little too like on the head.
Mm.
Like, when the priest rejects the crippled shepherd, or Simon, he has a name, Simon, when he rejects Simon's lamb for having the cut under the leg or whatever, he's like, I said I need a spotless lamb. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I know what you're getting at. You don't have to like, you might as well just call the lamb Jesus. I think we could understand what you're implying there. But regardless of that, I mean, that was probably the only one really for me. But yeah, I would say just quality. It was very surprising for being a pilot and an alleged church production. I will also say that I watched this on YouTube. I think you can watch all of like you can watch the full episode of every episode on YouTube, or at least the first season. They
Yeah.
also have like their own app, The Chosen, that you can watch it through, and then we watch it through like the BYU app on our smart TV. There's a few avenues. It's all free.
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't know if we've even noticed or said that it's crowdfunded.
Yes.
So it is 100% crowdfunded, meaning that Hollywood does not have its grubby paws in it, you know?
Yes.
So it's
on that point, after the episode on YouTube, there's like a 5-minute, maybe not 5 minute, but like around between 3 to 5 minutes of Dallas talking. He's like, this is presented as a short film, and he's like, this actually isn't a short film. It's the first episode for a TV series called The Chosen. And then he goes into his pitch of like, this is going to be crowdfunded. Please help us do this. But one thing we also learned in that pitch at the end is that Dallas has worked for Hollywood studios, so he has that experience and know-how of how to make quality content. But now he is working independently, crowdfunded, to share Jesus with people. So that's why we got some good quality Christian content. But anyways, back to the meat of the episode. You want to break down that priest shepherd hierarchy like you were talking about?
Yeah, so it really goes back pretty far to like and by no means this is my disclaimer. I am not a theologian here.
Not yet.
Yeah, not
You're
yet.
working on it.
No, I think that's one thing that just a lot of what I'll be doing is wrestling with this stuff, and just because I feel like I'm learning. So that when I made the Nerdy Bible, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take everyone on this journey with me of like learning. So if I get something wrong, I'm sure somebody will point that out because people usually
on the internet. No way.
No way. Yeah, right. No. So a lot of this stems from like Leviticus, which was, written in time of Moses. So a lot of the laws were given, and so you had your commandments that were given, and then after that, you started getting all these laws, and they were coming into play, and one of them was atonement for your sins, right? And so just a basic, they had a tabernacle, which is like the olden day temple of what we see, or synagogue, that type of thing. So priests would make sacrifices to atone for the sin, and really the farther you got into the tent, the closer you got to God. So the farther you were in a way, in like a hierarchy in your level of society, you were farther away from the inside of the tent. So shepherds, which are pretty low in the totem pole, I would say, back then, or probably in most cultures, they would bring a lamb to sacrifice, right? And it would have to be spotless. And the sacrifice that they would give would be more meaningful as the atonement for the sins grew high. Like, so for a priest that sins, that they're atoning for, they're going to be giving something more, and shepherds are a little bit less, like in the offering there, and like how they do the offering. So really, I think just the basic idea here is that, as I ramble on, this atonement for the sins would in theory bring them a little closer to God. And so that was the goal of it. And you want to bring your best to God, which is where the spotless lamb comes into play.
Yeah. So like Simon's lamb is not spotless. And he himself is not spotless
Correct.
in society. He is a lame, a cripple. I say a lame because that's what they say in the Bible, you know. So he's already kind of looked down upon anyways for being crippled. And on top of that, he brings this, basically ruined unusable sacrifice. So he's like extra out of favor here with this priest. And also, I think the one thing that stuck out to me too throughout all of the episodes of The Chosen I've seen is you really get a feel for like how important the priests and like religious leaders, the Pharisees, actually were in society. Like this priest was like, if you come back here with another offering like this, like you're banned from the square. So like he has the authority to be of like who comes and goes in this little market, which if you look at pastors today, like they're not like controlling cities and towns, right? So I don't know. That was just one thing that it's like, oh yeah,
They were often
priests
called lawyers. So that would be a different word that you might see in some different translations. Is that like Jesus himself says, "Woe to you, lawyers," is one translation. "Woe to you, Pharisees." So it's they are the law. I don't know, I wouldn't say makers, because at that point they're just reinforcing the law of,
they're like interpreters /
which I guess that's what a lawyer is. They're not,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I guess they do, I guess.
I wouldn't quite call them, I mean, they're kind of enforcers of the law, but not like the ways that you would think of law enforcers now. But also kind of like, I mean, look what they did to Jesus. They're like, he's breaking the law, arrest him.
But at that point, I mean, I guess it really just depended on where they were in their society. So like, at that point it was Rome, it was Pilate that made that decision because they were under Roman I can't think of the word, leadership.
Yes. Yeah, and it's crazy that like they even had the power to go to the leader there and have enough influence. I mean, we all know the story. But yeah, I don't know. That was just one thing. And then another thing that stuck out to me in this episode, which I think it's only about like 20 minutes long. It's not very long.
23. But then there's the talking after. So it's probably like 18 to 20 minutes. Yeah.
Like you see all across scripture, Jesus, uses the least of these, and you see how Simon is treated and looked down upon, and is literally like the least of the shepherds, which in this moment in time were the least of like the people in this area. So like the lowest of the year. The angel appears in their little camp, and God uses Simon to, he's the first to get to the birth, right? He's the one who Joseph lets hold Jesus. And then just seeing the scene at the end to close the episode where they're all four shepherds, the three and including Simon being the fourth, as they run back into the town to tell everyone of the birth of Jesus. The priest from before comes back, and this was borderline like 2 on the head, but also it was like very powerful. So I let it slide because I well up every time. I say every time, the 2 times that I've watched it. He sees Simon. He's like, "Hey, wait! I told you, you can't come back without, a perfect lamb for sacrifice." do you have one? And he just like smiles because yes, he does. Like he's back with the news of the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, the perfect, spotless lamb who sacrificed himself for us. And yeah, both times that I watched that scene, it's just like eyes started to water up. You get the lump in your throat, and I'm like, oh god, it's so good. It's so true. But yeah, those were the big things that stuck out to me. What about you? Were there anything?
Yeah, I just think the whole idea of coming from the perspective of a shepherd is just pretty deep to me. I just think it's a perspective that I haven't really thought enough about. You know, I mean, you hear this story every year. You know, it's like it's
Yeah.
Advent, right? That's really what this is. It's a idea of Advent. It's I can't remember Luke.
This
It's
episode
Luke.
basically is like the
I
first
think
10 verses of Luke chapter 2.
okay, two. I couldn't remember which one it was. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think Matthew does an accord of this too. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially just this different perspective because it's told like, hey, you know, hey shepherds, this is the good news. Like this is what you've been, you know, I mean, I think even in the story it talks about just the Messiah and I like one of the things I really like is that he's, you know, right around the time that you were talking about the cheesy like response from the Pharisee, the spotless lamb, and bringing that up. I think it's really cool that you have this shepherd that is absolutely most likely illiterate and doesn't actually have the ability to read scripture. Doesn't even at that point probably doesn't even have access to it. It's only just on scrolls and so and he's I mean this might just be one of their how did you put it earlier?
Creative liberties.
Yes, creative liberties, yes. But you know, he's questioning scripture and I liked that a lot. I think me personally as somebody that was a physicist coming into this, I probably will get in trouble one day for saying this, but I think everyone should question everything. That's just, you know, so seeing this like questioning these Pharisees, like, hey, you know, because the Pharisee was like, all right, so the shepherd asked the Pharisee, like, what is of this of Messiah? You know, like, do you think he's going to come in our time? Which is probably pretty, you know, I guess if you're going to town and seeing the Pharisee, that you're probably not doing that often. You're probably sitting in a, I mean, you're a shepherd. They're pretty isolated. Their job is to sit. I mean, literally, I made a list last night. I was thinking about what a shepherd does, and they literally are just isolated, taking care of sheep. They lead them to food. They lead them to water. They sling rocks at them to wrangle them in, to scare them back in, and they throw rocks at wolves that try to take, you know, like, so they're pretty isolated people. So like I figure when you get to town and you see this priest that you know has this knowledge of what you like live your life by as a priest, like, or as a Jewish person, like that is like Torah is your life, whether you know it or have it accessible to you or not. And like, so he's like, you know, do you see the Messiah coming? And he's like, oh, he'll come and he'll be a military leader, a great military leader. And his initial thing was to question that and say, well, actually, I think, and instantly the Pharisees like, who are you?
Right.
You know, you're nobody and you're questioning me right now. And so I thought that was really good because I don't think we're too far from that in our modern, I mean, culture. And that's I think one reason why I've come up with the Nerdy Bible and doing this, because like I want to challenge things. I want to bring, not to challenge things to challenge them, but to bring them up in ways to discuss them. And so I really liked that scene a lot. It was just meaningful to me because he's like a child that's discovering the world for the first time, and he's thinking, and he's just enjoying this like thought of like what God the Messiah, or what the Messiah could be, and he's just shot down, like, and it's like, it's so true, because that's just how it seems to be. People's spirits just get shot down way too much in life.
I thought it was cool too. Shortly after that, you see what I'll call spiritual hierarchy in action, because he's like getting ready to leave the town, right? And he overhears a scroll reading happening in the synagogue. So he's like, gets excited because, as you saw a few scenes earlier, like he's talked about how he's interested in the Torah and stuff. So he like makes his way in to the synagogue, and he's listening to the reading, and one of the priests or leaders in the synagogue, whatever you want to call it, sees him and is like, what do you do? Like, you can't be in here. And he's like, but I want to. He's like, no, like you're not allowed. You're
filthy.
You get out of here. Like, which
this is a holy place.
I just, I don't know. It just, things like that. They resonate because, nobody is perfect, right? And I don't know, just seeing how, I don't know, this stuff is still accessible and meant for those people. And by those people, I mean like me being a shepherd, basically. I don't know, it means a lot, because it's like, oh yeah, this is obtainable for me. Like, this is meant for me. It's meant for everyone. It's even meant for those who think that they're holier than everyone. Like, Jesus came for us all, not just those who thought they were close to God and deserved to be close to God, but for people like the shepherd, for people like Simon, for people like me, who sometimes feel like they might not be good enough, right? Or have too many blemishes. We're not that spotless lamb, right? So I'm a sucker for seeing that. I don't know where I was going with that, but
yeah, I mean, also, I just think, just following up on what you were just saying there, in the synagogue, when they say you're filthy, get out, it's a holy place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's where, the crazy thing about Jesus is that God doesn't just dwell in these places like that. And I don't know if I want to just say that he never did just go in those places, but I guess our understanding of him dwelled in those places. And so it's just cool that it's probably obviously scripted and well done, in the fact that you have him getting kicked out in for being filthy, and it's that very person that's filthy and dripping blood into the synagogue on the ground, that's getting kicked out, that's presented the good news of will eventually go out to everyone. I mean, at that point, I don't think there's many people that knew the good news. I mean, I think we have accounts of like Mary telling her sister Elizabeth, or her cousin. I can't remember if it's a sister. Probably, I think her cousin. But like, you know what I mean? So there's really the good news that we know today was presented to somebody that was kicked out of a synagogue for being filthy.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, for sure. And one of the other things, before we came down here to record, like I had watched the episode like 10 minutes before we started doing this. and I watched it with my wife, who, you know, we've watched all of The Chosen, but like me, she too had not even known there was a pilot. So we watched this together, and afterwards she was like, "Man, that's just like that whole the story, the hope that the birth of Jesus brought to those people, which, you know, they were literally being oppressed, right? Like they had the Roman occupation, like they came, they invaded their lands and told them how to live and basically, like, you know, enslaved these people for, you know, lack of a better
I think they said
comparison.
like 400 years, I think is typically, and I think it's I think it's Micah. No, not, why can't I think of the last book of the Old Testament? Not Micah. My goodness, I'm having just I know this.
It's all right. Keep talking. I'll look it up.
But Malachi, jeez. And so that's where you see, even in the introduction, they give you the synopsis of where they're at. They're under Roman occupation, and the prophets haven't spoke in 400 years. You know, there hasn't been, and that's I believe what they're referring to was Malachi being the last, you know, 400 years prior to that. So they've been just in oppressed, and again, you know, found themselves into occupation of some dictatorship, and
not the most hopeful of situations.
No, and that's where I think, you know, I think I mentioned earlier when we were talking about context, I love watching like historical documentaries on like Egypt and Rome and Greece and stuff, because it really gives you an idea of what it's like, and I think that gives you a good idea of like what it was like for them too, you know, being in those different societies.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, my wife was just talking about how like it's cool, but also it's like very applicable to today, right? Now here where we live, we're not living under an occupation. But I would say the state of the world we live in is not a very hopeful state. Lots of crazy stuff happening, lots of injustice happening, and there are a lot of people that need that hope. And we find ourselves living in the exact same situation, though. Like Jesus came to them then, you know, 2022 years ago. And when he was crucified and left, he told us that he will be coming back. So we're living in a very similar scenario where, you know, we're anxiously awaiting the return of the Messiah, right? So if you put yourself in Simon's shoes or one of the other shepherds' shoes there at that camp, and just like imagine how totally ridiculous and insane it would be for an angel to appear and be like, "Hey, remember how we told you that Jesus was coming? Or in our case, Jesus is coming back. Well, like he's here now. Like, go check it out." Like, how crazy would that be?
You know what makes me think of is that I always have this thought that I honestly think if Jesus came back again, how quickly would we kill him? Like, I mean, I'm not to like be, you know, I'm sure that it's, you know, biblically it's him coming back in a different fashion and all that. So I don't mean that to be like offensive or anything like that. I just literally mean like the state of us as I don't know, maybe I guess I'd say Christian, and we would be the first ones to do it too. That's the crazy thing, is that it seems as though like we wouldn't believe what's presented right before our eyes. We would just
Right.
we would do the same thing. Oh, like that's not how he would come. That's not how he would be. That's not who he would like. No, of course not. Let's, let's choose let's free the criminal instead of
Right.
honestly, I just I think about that, and no scenario in my head plays out in a way that we don't.
Yeah, I mean, if it I mean, I don't know how he's going to return.
Of
If it were a similar scenario, right, of a baby being born, of course, like, yes, exactly, and you even see that in this episode when they return to the town, and they're, like, running around telling everyone, and no one is paying any attention to them. They're kind of dismissive, uh, clearly show no interest, clearly are not believing what they're being told. And you're exactly right. That's exactly the reaction we would get. Um, and yeah, I mean, they say history is doomed to repeat itself.
Mhm.
So uh, I could definitely foresee like the same scenario playing out today. You're
Yeah.
exactly right.
And even then though, there was more I don't want to say more spiritual, but like I think science has done its job, done a really good job at giving us this like solidifiable, if that's a word,
Hey, you're the one
concept
that's
of
gone to college for like 8 years. You tell me.
yeah, you put a math problem in front of me, I'll solve that thing. No, English is not my strong suit. No. So most of my writing involves, I actually purchased the Merriam-Webster Dictionary Thesaurus app on
Oh,
my
nice.
phone.
Yeah,
It
heads up. Most of his writing is just in numbers, guys.
no, I don't even know what I was saying.
Science.
Oh yeah, no, it's like it kind of gives this like everything must be this like tangible thing. So it seems that we have drifted away from this spiritual idea of things. So like even now, it almost seems like it'd be harder to fathom this. At least back then, like you had other cultures that you were looking at different gods,
Mhm,
like lowercase g
mhm.
gods. You had your Roman gods, your Greek gods, all of the Mesopotamia. Like, so there was just so many different ideas of it, and I don't think the idea of spirituality was too hard of a concept for an ancient person to understand. And these days, it's like I, I've heard a lot of perspectives from different. I mean, I've heard it all. From physicists to biologists to evolutionists to there's nothing that's everything is must be tangible, and if not, it seems that it's just you you have no it's invalid. Like I don't know. I don't want to put that too far into it because there's gravity. There's a lot of different things, but the idea is that there's just I don't think it'd play over pretty well in our modern society. Is really where I'm going with this.
Yeah, no, and I agree. But it's just kind of like a cool parallel that she noticed,
No,
obviously.
it's good.
And yeah, I mean, she's super right. Um, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much what happens here. Those were my big takeaways. Like I said, it's pretty short. Probably sub 20 minutes. But I think it delivers it delivers its intended message well. And knowing its release date makes way more sense that this was probably part of a Christmas production. So, of course, you're going to start with the birth of Jesus.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, fun fact. If we continue on our, schedule, we will be posting, I think the last episode, I did the math,
of
the
course, you
week
did.
before the week before, actually my wife pointed it out, but the week before Christmas we'll be finishing
Oh,
season 2. So I
I don't know
thought that
why I said
was
that so high, but
yeah, that was no, you
whatever.
can.
That's awesome. So
Yeah, I
now
didn't.
we're gonna have to be really diligent on our
Yeah,
on our releases so we can make
I've
that
committed
happen.
us to. Yeah, but no,
That's
week
great.
before Christmas. So hopefully by then season 3 will be out and we'll be. Oh, and at that point we can probably not to like plan things now, but they did an extension of this on a Christmas special. Did you know that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I don't know. You didn't know about
I
this. I
didn't
didn't know if you
know.
knew about.
I know there was a Christmas special. What it is, like the contents of
Uh-huh.
the special, I'm not aware of. Obviously, except that it's probably revolves around this.
It
Um,
does. A lot of the same characters, a lot of
nice,
filling in gaps. It's actually pretty cool. So,
awesome.
um,
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. So our next episode will be. You'll hopefully be getting a week from this episode. And we will be jumping straight into the first episode of season 1. And I'm excited. We'll talk more about the cast of the actual series because nobody from this pilot is in the series itself.
mhm.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. The episodes are longer, so we'll have more to dive into. But yeah, we plan on approaching this from, of course, the theological side, the spiritual impact that it had on us, trying to help interpret what they're trying to get across in the episodes the best that we can,
Mhm.
but also talk about the cool cinematography, film related stuff within the episodes because there are some cool things. There's one episode in particular I cannot wait to talk about because it has a very, very awesome first like 10 minutes of the episode. So looking forward to that. But yeah, my name is Mike from Showboys. I was joined by Sir James of the Nerdy Bible. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you're listening to this on, and check out thenerdybible.com and showboysmedia.com.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, that's it. I'm looking forward to our next week.
Awesome. All right. You guys have a wonderful evening or morning or day, whatever time you're listening to this at. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.